So, I mentioned in another video that I was going to go over some of the succession planting issues that we had. This is that video. So, the issues that we had with our succession planting were really, in my opinion, twofold. Number one, we had a huge heat wave right when we tried to sow our seeds. And number two, we're going to cover in this video. So, most people are familiar with the idea of companion planting. Most people are familiar with companion planting. Companion planting is just the process of taking plants which are beneficial to each other and putting them in close proximity when you plant them. I'm not talking about companion planting today. I'm talking about what happens when you get companion planting wrong. So, allelopathy, which is the technical term for companion planting, is defined as the constant effect which living organisms exert on each other, which may be either beneficial or harmful. So, in reality, what that means is that plants can and will affect other plants. Effects may be either positive or negative depending on your viewpoint and what your goals are. So, to dive in a little further, some plants can release toxic chemicals into the air or the soil. These chemicals inhibit growth or kill neighboring plants. In nature, this is a good thing because it would reduce resource competition between one type of plant and something else. In trying to research this, what I found is that most of the educational or academic papers that are done on it are discussing the black walnut tree, which is like the most well-known tree that is allelopathic. The chemical component that they have identified in the black walnut is called juglone. Vegetables are sensitive to it. So tomatoes, peppers, and potatoes are the most sensitive to it. However, onions, squash, and beans were the least sensitive. So if you wanted to plant, say, sunflowers, and you still wanted to plant other things around them, in theory you could put in onions or squash or beans because they're not as sensitive to the chemical as other plants are. When you're planting or planning to plant in native soil, you would want to plan to stay outside of the root zone of whatever allelopathic plant you have. So if you have sunflowers in the ground, you figure out where the roots are going to be, and then you're going to want to plant outside of that. Or you could always do raised beds, but keep in mind that plants do transpire through the leaves, so you can get some air, I don't want to say pollution, but you can get some of that chemical through the air as well. So, like, in terms of companion planting, the positive effect could be as simple as masking the smell of tomato plants to reduce hornworm infestation. But negative effects of this can range in severity, including reduced germination rate, reduced development of foliage, reduced fruit production, reduced speed of fruit ripening. So if you have these compounds in the soil, or if you've planted something that has killed an area of the soil, or you can't get anything else to grow, you can remediate it in the same way that we would take activated charcoal in our bodies to capture and flush out toxins. You can use biochar in the garden, which is just charcoal that you make from organic materials. So the most tolerant vegetables that I've been able to find from a perspective of what you're going to be able to, what most people are going to be planting on a farm, garden, homestead, whatever, would be onions, beets, squash or melons, carrots, corn, and beans. So where this all ties in to my failed garden this year was that we found that sunflowers are allelopathic, and you can use the root and the stalks of sunflowers for weed suppression once you cut the sunflowers down, because of the chemicals that they release into the soil. Additionally, all brassica are allelopathic. So cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, mustard, radishes, all of those are allelopathic to some extent. So in the area where I was trying to replant bell peppers, which peppers being one of the most sensitive plants for that juglone chemical, I planted right over the top of where I had cabbage, which is a brassica, so I'm pretty sure that I just shot myself in the foot there. So a few other things that are allelopathic that have a negative impact: barley and wheat and rye are all allelopathic to a degree, and buckwheat as well. With herbs, we have oregano, rosemary, fennel. And one thing that everyone seems to know, and I thought I knew this, and I learned this during the course of research, is that pine trees. I was always taught growing up that pine trees are acidic, and the needles, when they lay on the ground, it washes that acid into the soil. It's not the acid per se, it's that the pine trees are actually allelopathic. So pine trees, elm trees, black locust, of course black walnut, black plum, cedar, elderberry, these are all going to be things that you're going to want to keep an eye out for